Richard's champagne glass caught the late afternoon light as he lifted it, smiling at the crowd gathered in Miranda's backyard. I shifted Lucia on my hip, her warm cheek resting against my collarbone. Then Richard said it clear, proud, certain. "Today," he declared, "I finally get to celebrate the first granddaughter in our family, my Miranda. You have given me a dream I have waited my whole life for." The air thinned around me. Lucia let out a soft coo, unaware she had just been erased by her own grandfather. The entire content of the video is a fictional work created by the writing team of the Revenge Amber channel, intended to reflect common conflicts in families and society, helping viewers recognize their emotions and choose a more positive way of living. Miranda glowed beside him. One hand curved over her small, still new baby bump. She looked straight at me when Richard called her my miracle, and the smile she offered was polished, practiced, and triumphant. Mateo shifted closer. "Camila," he murmured, "you do not have to stay." I steadied my breathing. "I do." Richard lifted his glass again, and now his voice booming with pride. "We wait for the day my older daughter finally gives me a child of her own." My fingers tightened around Lucia's blanket. Mateo's jaw clenched so hard I heard it click. A few guests turned toward me, confused, because I was standing right there with a 9-month-old baby in my arms. But Richard did not look at Lucia. He did not look at me. He gazed only at Miranda. Lucia made a small sound, reaching toward him. A tiny hand stretching toward a man who did not know she was his blood. I swallowed the burn rising in my throat. 30 years of swallowing. "Dad," I said softly, loud enough for the people closest to hear. "I already did." Richard blinked, as if waking. "What do you mean I held Lucia a little higher, letting the light fall on her round, curious face? This is Lucia. My daughter, your granddaughter." Silence rippled through the crowd. Miranda's smile faltered, then tightened like a fault line. Mateo touched my back, grounding me. "Tell them," he whispered. I did. And before the chapter of my old life closed, let me say this if you are listening. Stay with me. Share where you are watching from. It matters more than you know, because what happened next changed everything. Richard stared at me as though I had spoken in another language. Around us, conversations died mid-sentence. Even the music seemed to hesitate. "Camilla," he said slowly, "that baby is not, she is mine." I cut in. My voice did not shake. "Lucia is my daughter, your granddaughter." Miranda stepped forward before he could answer. Her hand raised like she meant to shield him. "Dad," she is confused. "That is not stop." I did not raise my voice, but Miranda froze anyway. "You know exactly who she is." Lucia reached toward Richard again, her tiny fingers opening and closing. The sight of it pushed something sharp inside me. For 9 months, she had been reaching into a space Miranda made sure was empty. Richard's face tightened. If this were true, "Camilla, why would you not tell me?" Mateo answered before I could. "She did. Many times. You never received a word because someone intercepted every message." Miranda let out a laugh. "Brittle as glass." "Intercepted Mateo. Listen to yourself." "This is humiliating." I kept my eyes on Richard. "Dad, I invited you to the hospital the day she was born. I invited you to her welcoming party. I sent pictures. I called. You never showed up. You never called back." Richard shook his head, bewildered. "I never received anything, not one message. And that," I said, "is exactly the problem." Miranda's voice sharpened. "You are attacking me at my own celebration. You want attention so badly you would make up a child." At that, several guests shifted uncomfortably. A few of them had seen me with Lucia before, had held her even, but Miranda had always explained it away as a friend's baby. Or a neighbor's child I was helping watch. Mateo stepped closer, his voice steady. Miranda, stop pretending. You threw away every invitation. You blocked every update. You told everyone in the family that Camila wanted distance. Richard looked at Miranda then. Really looked. Confusion sliding into something like fear. I lifted Lucia gently, letting her soft brown eyes meet his. "This is Lucia," I whispered. "You missed her first 9 months. You did not have to." The crowd had begun to whisper, a low ripple of unease threading through the yard. Richard kept staring at me, his expression tight, confused, bordering on alarm. When he finally asked, "When did you have a child 9 months ago?" I said, "In March." Richard blinked hard. "March. Miranda told me you were traveling for work that month. She said you were too overwhelmed to come to family events." Mateo exhaled sharply. "She did not travel. She delivered our daughter." Miranda's face tightened. "Dad, you cannot possibly believe this. If she had a baby, I would have told you myself. You promised you would," I said, turning to her. "At that cafe in Terrytown. I told you I was 3 months pregnant, and you hugged me and said you wanted to be the one to share the news with Dad. You said you wanted it to be special." Miranda scoffed. "Camilla, that never happened." But a few guests exchanged glances. One of them, an older aunt whose name I barely remembered, murmured, "I did wonder why you missed the Easter brunch that year." Richard stepped closer to Miranda. "You told me Camilla was working. You told me she asked for space. I told you what she said. Miranda insisted. She never texted. She never called. I tried. Dad, I really did." I shook my head. "I have every message I sent you. All of them delivered. None answered." Richard frowned. "I never saw one message, and I never saw one reply." My throat tightened, because someone made sure we stayed on opposite sides of silence. Miranda lifted her chin. "You are accusing me of controlling your phone now, of blocking every channel. Come on, Camilla. This is pathetic." But her voice trembled, and people heard it. I looked back at Richard. "You remember the baby shower planning, the dates that kept moving, the constant rescheduling." "Yes," he said slowly. "Miranda told me you were too exhausted to commit." "I was waiting," I said. I kept asking her for updates. She kept telling me everyone was busy. Miranda pressed a hand to her chest. "I tried. Nobody could come. It was not my fault the family had conflicts." Mateo stepped forward. "You never invited them." Miranda snapped. "You have no proof of that." He answered quietly. "We do." Richard looked between us, the daughter he believed and the daughter he trusted. Something unsettled him, something that made him step back as if balancing on the edge of a truth he did not want. He turned to me again. "Why did you not come to me directly? Mija, why rely on your sister to pass messages?" My voice softened, because I thought she cared, because I believed she wanted us to be a family again. Lucia fussed in my arms, sensing the tension. I held her close and whispered, "It is all right." "Cariño." Richard's eyes followed that tiny gesture, a grandfather watching his granddaughter for the very first time, too late to pretend this was nothing. And for the first time that afternoon, something in his expression cracked. Richard's silence pressed against my skin. But I kept going. If I stopped now, the truth would rot inside me the way everything else had. I tried one more time. I said, "When Lucia was 6 weeks old, I drove past Miranda's house after her pediatric appointment. I thought, maybe a visit would help us reset." Miranda folded her arms. "You should have called." "I did. You did not answer." A few guests murmured again. Mateo stepped closer, steady and unshakable. "I waited on your porch," I continued. "Your housekeeper, Rosa, let me in so I could get out of the cold. You were not home." Miranda's eyes narrowed. "And now you want to drag her into this?" I ignored her. While I waited, I noticed the recycling bin in your office was overflowing. I tried to press the papers down so they would not fall. Miranda's jaw twitched. So you were snooping. I was cleaning, I said quietly. And that was when I found the first one. Richard's brow furrowed. Found what I reached into my bag and pulled out a worn, folded invitation. I handed it to him. He opened it slowly. This is Lucia's coming home celebration? I nodded. The one I hand-delivered to Miranda to give you. A sharp inhale rippled through the crowd. Miranda snatched the invitation from Richard's hands. Anyone could have printed that. I found the hospital announcement under it. I said, then the christening invitation. Then the photos I mailed you for your office. Every one of them was in her trash. Some still in sealed envelopes. Richard turned to Miranda, his voice thinner than before. Is this true? She threw her hands up. Dad, anyone could have put those in my trash. She is staging things now. She is desperate. Mateo stepped forward again. Rosa saw Camilla find them. She asked why the invitations were thrown away. Miranda's lips parted, but no sound came out. I took a breath, steadying myself. It did not stop there. Remember Grandmother Teresa's jewelry, the pieces she left for the first granddaughter. Richard nodded slowly. They were valuable, sentimental. You gave them to Miranda to keep safe. I said. She told you I said I did not want them. You did. Miranda snapped. I never said that. I replied, but I did see pictures of them 2 months ago online. For sale? Gasps broke around us. Richard's head jerked toward Miranda. What? They were old, she shot back. I was trying to raise money for the nursery. Camilla does not even like vintage jewelry. I tightened my grip on Lucia's blanket. The Art Deco emerald pendant worth $18,000 was listed for $7,500. The anniversary pearls were listed for even less. Richard's face drained of color. He whispered, Miranda, why would you sell family heirlooms? She stepped back, fury and panic tangled in her eyes. I did it for my family. My real family, not hers. She gave up being one of us a long time ago. Lucia shifted in my arms, letting out a soft cry. It was the only honest sound in the yard. And for the second time that afternoon, Richard looked at me like he was seeing something he had never allowed himself to see before. Richard held the air like it pained him to breathe. His gaze bounced between me and Miranda, searching for a version of the story he could survive. I kept going. There was more, I said quietly. After I found the invitations, I started wondering what else I had missed. Why no one called? Why no one showed up? Why the family acted like I had disappeared? Miranda crossed her arms tightly. Here we go. I looked straight at Richard. One night, when Lucia had a fever, I called you. I wanted to hear your voice. You have always been calm when I panicked. Richard swallowed. I never received a call. I know, I said. Miranda answered. She told me you were in Vermont. No service. No way to contact you. A murmur swept through the guests. Ethan, standing behind Miranda, frowned slightly. I was not in Vermont, Richard whispered. I know that too. I continued, because later that night, Ethan mentioned something in passing. He said he had been messaging with you and the family about the weekend. Ethan blinked. I did not think it was a secret. Richard turned to Miranda. What group chat? Miranda stiffened. It is nothing. Just a planning chat. I shook my head. It was called Family Circle. 22 people. Active for a year and a half. Everyone sharing photos, updates, jokes. It was your way of staying close. Richard's brows knit in confusion. Why were you not in it? I asked myself that too. I said. Then I asked one of our aunts to show me. And I read everything. Miranda's voice sharpened. You broke into a private chat. It was not private. I replied. It was family. My family. Richard's voice cracked. What did it say that I asked for distance? That pregnancy made me antisocial, that I did not want visitors, that I preferred not to talk to you. My throat tightened. Every time someone asked about me, Miranda answered within seconds. She made sure everyone believed I wanted nothing to do with you. A painful silence spread. Mateo's hand found mine. She wanted Camilla isolated, he said softly, so no one would notice she erased a child. Richard pressed a trembling hand to his forehead, and in the space between breaths, I saw it, the beginning of the truth settling into him, heavy enough to change everything that came next. Richard's shoulders sagged as if someone had quietly removed the bones holding him upright. Miranda stepped closer to him, her voice trembling but still sharp. Dad, you cannot believe this. She is twisting everything. You know how dramatic she gets. I answered before Richard could. No. I was quiet for 30 years. That is not drama. That is survival. Mateo squeezed my hand once, steady and certain. We did not come here unprepared, he said. We knew this would be denied. Miranda's eyes flicked to him. You think bringing him into this makes your lies stronger. He is not here to strengthen anything, I said. He is here because he watched me try to fix this family alone for years. A few guests shifted closer, drawn in by the unraveling. I continued. After I found the invitations in your trash, Miranda, I asked myself whether I had imagined everything, whether I really had pushed people away, whether I had misunderstood. But then Mateo's cousin Santi offered to help. Miranda scoffed. A hacker. Wonderful. A software engineer, Mateo corrected calmly. Who pulled metadata showing that Camilla's messages were opened on your devices? Not Dad's. Richard inhaled sharply. You read my messages. I intercepted nothing. I said softly. Someone else did. Miranda shook her head violently. Dad, this is insane. They are attacking me because it is my day. I held up another folded paper. Grandmother Teresa's recipe notes, the ones she left for both of us. Do you remember what she said in her video message? Miranda froze. Richard frowned. Video message. She recorded one on her tablet a year before she passed. I said, Santi found it. She said she wanted both her granddaughters to share her legacy. Equally. Miranda's face went rigid, every muscle fighting not to crack. Richard stared at her, his voice raw. Miranda, what else did you hide from me? She did not answer, but the silence between them did. The videographer, who had been quietly filming the celebration moments earlier, froze with his camera half raised as Mateo lifted the small tablet we had brought. The screen glowed in his hands, bright enough that a few guests instinctively leaned closer. Miranda's eyes widened. Do not you dare. It is time, Mateo said quietly. Everyone deserves to see what really happened. I nodded once, and he tapped the screen. Grandmother Teresa's voice filled the yard, soft, warm, unmistakable. My girls, she said, I want you to share these recipes. Both of you. I want you to carry this family forward together. Miranda stepped back as though struck. A few guests gasped. Richard pressed his fingers to his lips, the way he did whenever emotion threatened to break him open. That video is fake, Miranda snapped. Anyone can edit. Santi authenticated it. Mateo said, down to the recording date and signature data. It is real. Miranda shook her head violently. No. No. Dad. You know how they are. I know how you are. Richard interrupted, his voice harsh with something unfamiliar. I just do not know how long it has been this way. Before Miranda could answer, Mateo swiped to the next file. A set of images appeared, screenshots of jewelry listings from various resale sites. Each one displayed a piece of Teresa's heirloom collection. Richard took the tablet from him, his hands trembling. This is the pendant she wore to every anniversary dinner. Why is it online? Why is it priced for $7,500? Because Miranda listed it, I said, along with the pearls, the Art Deco bracelet, the emerald ring. She sold some. She planned to sell the rest. Miranda's voice broke into a near shriek. I needed the money for the nursery. It was not a big deal. Richard stared at her with something like grief twisting through him. It was family. It was your grandmother's life. It was mine, Miranda hissed. You said I should hold on to it. You trusted me with it. And you sold it, I whispered. A stillness fell over the crowd, the kind that comes right before something shatters. Mateo tapped again. A new screen opened photos of sealed envelopes, discarded invitations, and message logs showing my calls routed to Miranda's device. Someone in the crowd murmured, Oh my God! Miranda lunged forward. Stop showing that you are twisting everything. I was trying to protect this family from her drama. Her drama. Mateo repeated, Lucia is 9 months old, and her grandfather did not know she existed. She wanted it that way. Miranda screamed. She never wanted the attention on her. She never wanted to be part of us. That is not true, I said. My voice cracked, but I kept speaking. I wanted you, all of you. I wanted what we had before everything became a competition. Miranda shook her head, her breath turning ragged. You always had him first. Dad loved you first. You had 5 years before I even existed. The confession hit the guests like a wave. Richard stared at her. Miranda, is that what this is about? Her lip trembled. You never saw me. Not the way you saw her. You never fought for me. I fought for both of you, he whispered. But I thought Camilla did not need me. Miranda laughed, broken. That was the problem. She never needed anybody. So you made me the one who needed everything. I held Lucia a little closer as Miranda's voice cracked again. She had a daughter first, Miranda said, each word shaking. And if you knew she had the first granddaughter, everything would go back to her. All your love, all your attention. I would disappear. A few guests covered their mouths. Ethan stepped away from Miranda slowly, like seeing her clearly for the first time. Richard's voice was barely audible. I never asked you to disappear. But you would have, Miranda whispered. You always chose her. The silence after those words did not feel like victory. It felt like loss raw, old, and finally exposed. Miranda stood trembling, her confession still hanging in the humid air, but no one moved to comfort her. The crowd that once adored her now held back, unsure, wary. Even Ethan stepped farther away, shaking his head slowly as though he could not believe the woman in front of him was the same one he married. Richard lowered the tablet. His voice was hoarse. You took my granddaughter from me. Miranda swallowed hard. Dad, I was trying to protect myself. I could not let her win again. You stole from this family, he said. You lied to every one of us. You sold your grandmother's heirlooms. You silenced your sister. You erased a child. Miranda's voice pitched higher. You never saw me. I had to fight for space in this family, and you think this is how you claim it. He took a step back. The distance between them grew like a wall. Neither could cross again. By destroying what you did not have, Lucia let out a small whimper. I adjusted her gently, and Richard turned toward us, eyes full of something fragile shame, sorrow, awakening. Camilla, he said softly. Can I hold her? I hesitated only a breath before placing Lucia into his arms. She reached up immediately, brushing her tiny fingers along his jaw. Richard broke, shoulders shaking as he whispered, I missed everything. I missed my own blood. Behind him, Miranda cracked. Dad, please, she is turning you against me. Richard did not look at her. You did that yourself. She let out a choked sound, more fury than grief, and the crowd finally understood the truth. Miranda had not been protecting anything. She had been guarding the only spotlight she ever believed she had. And now, under the weight of her own choices, it flickered out. The moment Richard held Lucia, something in him shifted like a door he had kept shut for years, finally creaked open. Miranda watched it happen, her eyes filling with a panic she could no longer hide. "Dad," she whispered, stepping forward. "You cannot let her manipulate you." She planned this. She wanted to humiliate me. Richard shook his head slowly. "I am not being manipulated. I am seeing clearly for the first time." Miranda's breath hitched. "So that is it. You are just choosing her." "I am choosing truth," he said, "and responsibility. Something I should have done years ago." Ethan cleared his throat, voice trembling. "Miranda, is any of this not true?" She turned to him, desperation breaking through the last of her composure. "Ethan, please. You know me. You know I would never." He stepped back. "I thought I knew you." Her mouth opened, then closed again. The silence around her grew heavier. Richard shifted Lucia slightly, his voice steady but firm as he spoke to the crowd. "There will be changes, effective immediately." Miranda stiffened. "Dad, do not do this here." He continued anyway. "The house you expected to inherit will be sold. The proceeds will be placed in a trust for all grandchildren present and future. And the business shares I once planned to give you will go to Lucia instead, held in trust until she comes of age." A soft gasp swept the yard. Miranda stared at him, horrified. "You are punishing me." "No," he replied. "I am correcting a mistake." She choked out a laugh that bordered on a sob. "You are ruining my life." "You did that," Richard said softly. "Every choice you made led here." Miranda's gaze snapped to me, full of raw accusation. "You think you won. You think parading a baby around makes you better than me." I held her stare. This was never about winning. It was about telling the truth. Her expression crumbled. She turned sharply and stormed across the yard, pushing past chairs and relatives who parted instinctively, as though her unraveling might consume them too. No one followed her, not even Ethan. Richard looked down at Lucia again, and for the first time, she smiled at him, a tiny, soft smile that seemed to undo him completely. He whispered, "I will not miss another moment." And I believed him. After Miranda stormed out, the energy in the yard shifted lighter for some, unbearably heavy for others. Richard still held Lucia, rocking her gently as though afraid she might disappear if he stopped. He finally looked at me. "Camilla, I do not expect forgiveness. I just want a chance to earn it." I nodded once. "That starts now." He exhaled shakily. "I want to be in her life. I want to know her first words, her first steps. I want to make up for what I missed." Mateo stepped beside me, calm but firm. "Then you show up, consistently, no favoritism, no disappearing. I will." Richard promised. "I swear, I will." A few relatives approached hesitantly, some to apologize, some to offer support. One aunt took my hand and said, "We should have asked more questions. We should have looked closer." I answered softly, "We all should have." Richard handed Lucia back to me, but not without pressing a careful kiss to her forehead. "I will see her this week," he said. "If you will let me." "You can," I replied, "but you will earn that trust day by day." He nodded, accepting the terms without flinching. As the crowd began to disperse, Ethan lingered. His voice was tired. "If you ever need help with anything involving Miranda's history or her patterns, I will cooperate. Fully." I thanked him. He walked away slowly. A man realizing the house he built had never been solid, when it was just the three of us, me, Mateo, and Lucia. Quiet finally settled. Mateo brushed a thumb over my cheek. "You did it," he murmured. "You finally said everything." And he finally heard it. I said. Lucia babbled softly and reached for my necklace. I kissed her hand, feeling something inside me steady at last. I turned slightly toward the camera still mounted on its tripod, forgotten during the chaos. My voice softened, but I kept the strength behind it. "For anyone listening," I said, "thank you for staying with me through this. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is there. Your support means more than you know." Mateo wrapped an arm around me, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt the beginning of a family built on truth, not performance, not fear, not favoritism, just us, and the future we chose to create.